Thank you for that lovely welcome. I'd like to start today with a question, but I have to ask you in advance to hold on to the first image that pops into your head. Don't start with the analysis, just the first response that pops into your head. What do you think is your perception of the family office? Now, I would love to do a straw poll as to what would be the average reaction to that question, the average response. Obviously, I can't do that, but I can make an educated guess. I would suggest that the majority of you, when I say the words family office, will think this. The single family office is a complicated, elaborate tax avoidance scheme for the ultra high net worth. Am I right? Well, you're wrong. And today, I'm going to show you the other side of the single family office, the positive side. I'm going to show you an institution that's actually encouraging, and its success is dependent on intergenerational communication and education. I'm going to show you an institution that is empowering women in locations where traditionally they don't have a voice. I'm going to show you an institution that is driving forward sustainable and impact investing. And I'm going to show you an institution that in its virtual form has lowered its price point and opened up the benefits of the single family office to a much wider audience. So before I begin, I'm just going to ask two things of you. Firstly, to give me your time, for which I thank you in advance. And secondly, to maintain an open mind. And therefore, hopefully by the end of my talk, I may have just convinced you to think about single family offices in a less negative frame. So let's start with the first myth. Most people will say to you that the family office was invented in the late 19th century in America. Myth. The single family office has been around in some form or another for centuries. So we can go back to the Norman Knights in 1066 that invaded, and we see the first glimmers of the family office with the idea of leaving a lasting legacy. Move forward, we come through into the medieval era with the coming of the aristocracy, the idea of noblesse oblige, duty of care, lasting legacy. Move forward, we see in the Renaissance families like the Medici family, which is a prime example of the family office. Great supporters of the arts, of science, of research. There we have perfect single family office. Skip forward and we finally hit the late 19th century where, yes, in the United States, you have families like the Rockefeller and Rothschild families establishing their single family offices. But where does the single family office stand today in the 21st century, and where is its future? Well, to answer those questions, you first have to understand what is a single family office, why do people set them up, and what is their purpose? First of all, what is the single family office? Well, let me just give you a very quick description, because we have a saying in the industry, once you've seen one single family office, you've seen one single family office. Because as the name suggests, the single family office is set up to hold the wealth, the assets of one single family. Normally, it is a corporate entity, but not necessarily. So it is a separate entity. So that's what it is in a nutshell. Next question. Why do people set them up? Now, I know most of you will automatically say, to avoid tax. Wrong. Actually, the majority of people who set up single family offices, it's for one reason alone, and that is to leave a lasting positive legacy. And in order to do this, the successful family office has to understand two concepts. The first concept, rather morbidly, especially in the current climate, is that our time on this earth is very short. We are here for but a blink of the eye. And in fact, a while ago, I was talking to a geologist friend of mine, and funny enough, late night, our discussion turned to death and lifespan, as it does. And she told me, well, you've got to understand, Olivia, as a geologist, man's lifespan on this earth is just a blink of the eye. You're here, you're gone. Compared to the sort of time spans I'm dealing with. It was rather depressing, but I thought, yeah, she's got a point. But this is the concept that you have to understand with a single family office, because to leave a lasting legacy, you have to understand that what you own, you're not going to take it with you, but you can use it for the benefit of future generations. So you're no longer just an owner, you're a custodian. You're a guardian of that, those assets, for not just the next generation, but the generation to come, and after that, well into the future, to generations you will never live to see. That is the primary concept of the single family office. And there you can see the link all the way back to those knights of old that had the idea of custodianship, of leaving that legacy. The second important point of the single family office is the idea that it's no good just holding on to wealth and thinking that, well, hey, when I die, it goes to whomever I decide. The important concept of the single family office is that succession planning starts from day one, because wealth is useless on its own without the know-how. The two go together and are passed from generation to generation. Now, in order to pass that know-how, that asset, which is one of the most important assets in any family, is that know-how, is that understanding, is the ethos of what the family stands for. That has to pass with the wealth to the next generation in order to provide that legacy, that lasting legacy, which is why you have a separate entity. No one ever owns it, you're just the custodian. Now, the important thing about that is that it's not a one-way street. It's not just the older generation telling the younger generation, hey, this is what you're doing, this is the strategy, and that's it. It's a two-way street. The older generations pass down their know-how, their knowledge, their experience, and they bring the younger generation in from a young age to share their ideas, to drive forward into the next century with new ideas, coupled with the old knowledge. And that's where you have a really powerful tool with the investment opportunities as well, because of the wealth. So the three things together, young knowledge, old knowledge, and that wealth platform, you have a really powerful tool for good. So that's where we're talking about communication between generations. And moving on from that, I'd like to show you why that is so important. Because it is those generations that are coming in now that have driven forward the importance of investing in sustainable and impact investing. It is the family offices, the single family offices, that are driving this move forward. So we're what we call finance with a conscience. I know you think all of us who work in the financial sectors are horrendous people, but we do have consciences too. And this is where we are looking at sustainable and impact investing. Now, let's just clarify what those two things are. Sustainable investing is where we look to use what we call ESG criteria, economic, social, and governance criteria, to make sure that whatever investment we are investing in is not going to create a negative impact. 1 in 3 family offices around the globe operate in sustainable investments, with on average 19% of their global portfolio given over to this type of investment. And we predict that over the next 5 years, that's going to increase to 35%. And it's that younger generation coming in that is driving that forward. Next, we look at impact investing, which is more of a development of sustainable investing, because impact investing talks about an investment that creates a financial return, but at the same time creates a measurable, positive social impact. And so it's almost a development of sustainable investing. 25% of single family offices are investing in impact investing projects. And that we expect that to increase to 25% are involved in it, and they are on average 14% of their portfolio is given over to that, to impact investing. And we expect that to increase to 25% over the next 5 years. So as you can see, they're driving forward finance with a conscience. They are driving forward the idea that we can create a positive social impact while at the same time guarding the family's wealth for future generations. what the important thing there is to also look at the type of investing they're doing. Because by far the most popular type of investment in family offices is direct private equity. And what that means is they're not some faceless corporate investor just waiting for the financial return. They are actually getting involved. They want to be directly involved with the investment project. They want to be directly involved in that, getting that project on its feet, moving it forward, and creating the market for it. So this is what is so important with a single family office. They are not just nameless investors. Going back to what we said about the knowledge, they are almost knowledge clusters, because the know-how of a single family office, they are very powerful. They have years of experience. Very often they have extremely well-known advisors working for them. That knowledge is then opened up to the investment project, the people who are looking for that investment, who are looking to drive their idea forward. So they can tap into the knowledge base of the single family office and the contacts, because these family offices have contacts across the globe. They are powerful tools. And now they are powerful tools for good social impact. Moving forward again, we want to see now that we've seen that they are moving into social and to sustainable and impact investing. But who's driving that? Not just the younger generations. In fact, our research shows that it's women who are actually driving forward that wish to have sustainable and impact investing. And often women who are involved in a single family office in locales where traditionally they may not have had a voice in how the family is run. They are getting involved with the single family office. So we are seeing the positive side here. So we're seeing communication between multiple generations. The idea that you are not an owner, you can't just grab everything, you are a custodian for the next generation. And you have to have a social conscience, because now you are investing with what your family ethos is, with what you believe in. So we're seeing the positive side. Now that is all well and good. And to be frank, the traditional single family office has expensive overheads, because you are creating a standalone entity which normally has a building, employs staff, advisors, etc. So the running costs can be quite high, which is why it is traditionally really only open to the ultra high net worth who can afford those sort of costs. Moving forward, technology is disrupting that, because now we have the virtual family office. Most professionals will tell you they've been around since the 90s, which is true, but with the development of technology, we are now seeing a new breed of virtual family office, whereby we outsource work as and when the single family needs it. So whatever family you're setting the family office up for, the virtual family office can outsource the work as and where they need it. Which means that you're working at a much lower price point, which means that the service and all those benefits of having multi-generational planning for succession, of having a positive social impact, all of that is now available to a much wider audience. So, in summary, because I've rather galloped through, the single family office is not a tax evasion scheme for the ultra high net worth. It is a very positive, useful business tool which is driving forward ethical investing. It is also the only proper succession planning tool that plans for and teaches multi-generational respect for a family ethos, pulling the family together, making them concentrate on what they share rather than what pulls them apart. It also teaches all the generations involved to think further than their lifetime, to think further than even their children's lifetime, to be prepared to look after the generations that they will never live to see. And if you think about it, our timeline now, we are living longer than ever before, so we will see more generations in our lifetime than ever before. And this is why the single family office is such an important tool, not just now, but going forward into the future, because it is the only succession planning tool that teaches families to stick together, first of all, to communicate not just within their own generation, but multiple generations. And it is the only tool that actually drives forward ethical investing, so that your family can make a positive impact, not just for this generation, not just for the next, but for many to come that you will never live to see. And I think that really is an important and positive tool to connect past, present, and future. Thank you for your time.